She was just a civilian, but then something insane happened in the sky at 3 a.m. The night was still, a heavy blanket of darkness wrapped around the small town of Vinewood. At 3 a.m., most residents were tucked in, dreaming deep, but not Emma. She always felt a pull to the night, an electric charge in the air that whispered promises of secrets, yet to unfold. As she stood on her porch, a sense of anticipation tingled in her spine. Suddenly, a bright flash cut through the sky, illuminating the clouds for just a split second. It was like the heavens themselves were ripping open. It wasn't just a star. No, this was different. The light pulsed, throbbing as if it had its own heartbeat, and then, just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. Emma's heart raced, her breath caught in her throat. Was it even real? The look of panic on her face mirrored the rising tension tightening in her chest. She glanced around. Her neighbors were still asleep, unaware of the cosmic anomaly just above them. But she wasn't alone for long. From the shadows of the trees she heard a low growl, a sound that sent shivers racing down her arms. A moment later, a soft whirring filled the air, echoing in the stillness, closer, closer. Emma's eyes darted toward the sound. It felt far too ominous for the quiet of her typical suburban life. She stepped off the porch, the wooden boards creaking beneath her hesitant feet, and stepped into the dewy grass. There, above the treetops, she caught sight of something moving, a shape unlike any plane she had ever seen. This was out of a sci-fi movie, sleek and metallic, gliding effortlessly across the sky. Panic surged. Who needed a movie? This was real life, and her stomach churned. What was happening? She felt the thud of her heart echoing in her ears like a drum. What if it was something terrible? Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Emma's gaze went back to the strange vessel. It hovered for a moment, then shot straight up, leaving no trace but a whisper of wind. What just happened? Was this a warning? A seduction from the skies? The hairs on the back of her neck stood, the air thick with an unspeakable tension. She felt like prey in a world she didn't belong to. But one thing was clear, the night had transformed. And as she stood there, rooted to the spot, eyes wide and heart racing, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. What else was out there? What were they waiting for? Emma had to know. What if the next flash wasn't just a flicker in the night? The air grew heavy around Emma, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. Her breath came shallow and quick, and every muscle in her body was coiled tight. She half expected something to leap from the shadows, something dark and manifesting from the atmosphere that seemed to pulse with energy. As if summoned by her fear, the whirring sound returned, sharper and more pronounced now. Emma's instincts kicked in. She crouched low, the wet grass seeping coolness into her skin, but every ounce of her screamed to look up. The world felt surreal, warped even, and she could hardly differentiate between left and right, or between her pounding heart and the strange cadence of the sound above. The vessel suddenly dimmed, distorting the night sky, then flickered violently as though in response to her trepidation. Was it watching her? Emma's breath caught. She threw a cautious glance over her shoulder. Her neighborhood was still untouched in its slumber. The weight of the knowledge that she was alone sent adrenaline racing through her veins. This was a moment. A moment she could either run from or confront head-on. She chose the latter. Standing, she regained her footing, gathering courage as she moved forward, glancing up now and again. It's not possible, she whispered to herself, as if saying it out loud would somehow anchor her to reality. A dull throb resonated in her chest, a mix of fear and exhilaration. She touched her pocket, her fingers brushing against her phone, the thought of capturing evidence sparking a rebellious urge to rise within her. But what if doing so only made things worse? In that instant, the object flashed brightly again, and the air around her crackled as if charged with high voltage. Emma's breath stuttered. In that jarring second, she felt deeply alive, too alive. She raised her phone, her fingers shaking, but before she could press record, the light shot downward. In one fluid motion, it plummeted, illuminating the ground around her. It happened so quickly, a segment of time where everything fell silent, the ambient sounds of the night swallowed whole by an overwhelming hum. Emma's heart thrummed in sync with the vessel. She could feel it resonating, a pulse echoing within her. Then, abruptly, a spotlight fanned out, hitting her square in the chest. The warmth of the light enveloped her, wrapping around her like a soft blanket but with a sharpness that made her breath hitch. She staggered back, full of confusion and disbelief, her mind racing. In that blinding brilliance, she thought she saw something, a shadow flitting within the light, a silhouette that seemed to beckon her. It was an invitation, maybe a warning, a seductive whisper woven within the brightness. "Emma?" The voice startled her. It was distant yet urgent, pulling her back to reality. She turned toward the sound. It was Jake, a neighbor she seldom spoke to, racing toward her with urgency in his steps. "Did you see that?" he panted, breathless. His eyes were wide and wild, mirroring her own terror. "The light, I don't know," she replied, her words tumbling out in a rush. "What did you see?" "Something's not right." Jake's gaze darted towards where the vessel had been, his expression taut with fear. "They're coming. We need to hide." What did he mean? Hide from what? Emma felt the initial impulse of panic return, clawing at her throat. Suddenly, she realized the night was far from over, and whatever had emerged from the darkness was about to reveal itself in ways they could never have anticipated. A shiver danced down her spine as the shadows seemed to stretch and move around her. What were they about to face? Emma had to know. The line between curiosity and dread blurred, and as Jake pulled her toward the trees, she sensed that the fight for answers was only beginning. What if the next flash brought something far more sinister? They rushed through the thick underbrush, the damp earth sinking beneath their feet as an invisible tension gripped the night. Emma's pulse hammered in her ears as Jake led the way, his quickened breaths only heightening her own anxiety. The bright light above them flickered sporadically, casting erratic shadows that made the trees seem alive, like skeletal hands reaching toward them. "What do you think it is?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know, Emma," Jake said, his tone raw with fear. "But whatever it is, it's not friendly." The darkness enveloped them as they ducked behind a cluster of trees, the branches forming a natural barricade. The air was thick with the smell of damp moss, and something metallic that made her stomach twist with unease. Emma caught Jake's gaze, a mix of fear and determination shining in his eyes. "Stay low," he urged. "If they're looking for us, we can't let them find us here." "Who are they?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Whatever's inside that thing," he motioned toward the dimming light. "Just, please don't make a sound." The whirring intensified, and the once distant sound now felt like it was hovering just above them. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, struggling to quiet her mind. She tried to focus, to breathe steadily, but the staccato rhythm of her heart betrayed her. What were they in for? Suddenly, a beam of light sliced through the trees, illuminating the area with a blinding intensity. Emma squinted against the brightness, her instincts screaming for her to duck deeper behind the trunk. "Jake!" she hissed, barely audible over the pulsating hum. He grabbed her wrist, squeezing it tightly. "Don't move!" The beam swung, sweeping across the clearing. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she watched the light flicker past them. In that moment, she felt naked, exposed, like the light could sense her very being. And then it stopped. Right where they were hiding. A deep voice boomed through the trees, echoing with an alien cadence. "We are here for the chosen." The words hung in the air, heavy with implications that set Emma's nerves alight with panic. The chosen? What did that even mean? Emma's mind raced. She felt like she was sinking into quicksand, each thought pulling her deeper into anxiety. "Stay still," Jake whispered again, his eyes darting to where the light had frozen, the source now hovering mere feet away. They could see the outline of the vessel against the waning night sky. The voice continued, resonating with a captivating power. We will find what we seek. Surrender and be transformed. Transformed? The words sent a shiver down her spine. Emma felt a knot tighten in her chest. Was this what they wanted? Her heart raced with dread. She could feel the weight of the moment, as if time had stopped around them. Are they looking for us? She murmured, the question hanging heavily between them. Jake shook his head, trying to suppress his own trembling. We have to find out. Suddenly, the beam of light shifted, sweeping away from them and landing on the edge of the clearing. The voice continued, even softer now, but charged with metallic urgency. Commanders, we have captured no signatures. The subjects salute us. Emma felt the warmth of hope flicker. They weren't detected yet. Now's our chance, she whispered, adrenaline coursing through her for the first time. On 3, 1, 2, Jake began, his grip tightening as they prepared to make a run for it. Before he could finish the count, the air buzzed with energy, and the light returned with ferocity, enveloping them again. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, anticipating the worst. What if this was it? This was not a game anymore, it was survival, and as they stumbled from their cover, the ground beneath them trembled, as if the very earth was alive with fear. Run! She screamed, the sound ripping from her throat as they dashed toward the darkness, the unrelenting searchlight hot on their heels. What choice did they have now? Would they escape, or was it already too late? The grapple of fear and courage churned within her, keeping her focused. But as they pushed forward into the unknown, a new question lingered in the depths of her mind. What awaited them at the end of this chase? Emma could only hope they wouldn't find out too soon. The night erupted in chaos as they raced through the woods, branches clawing at their clothes like angry spirits. The beam of light swept back toward them, relentless and blinding, igniting every nerve in Emma's body. With every step, dread coiled tighter around her chest. They had to be silent, but panic bubbled up inside her, threatening to spill over. Over here! Jake's voice cut through the sound of their footfalls, guiding her toward a thicket of brambles ahead. The bushes loomed like a fortress, their wiry vines hanging ominously. Without hesitation, they plunged into the tangled mass, the sharp edges of the thorns tearing at their skin. Just keep moving! Jake whispered furiously, the urgency making his voice tremble. Emma crawled forward, her heart pounding in her ears, scrapes and scratches adding to her mounting fear. She could barely breathe. The world outside felt like a nightmare, the glowing light above was a harbinger of something truly evil. And then, the ground shook beneath them, a low pulse like the beat of a drum, almost hypnotic. What is happening? Emma whispered hoarsely, avoiding the branches whipping about them. Jake's eyes darted around, wild and electric. I don't know, but we need to find cover. We can't stay here. They crawled further into the underbrush until they found a small hollow, just wide enough for them both to squeeze into. They pressed their backs against the earth, hearts racing in the suffocating silence. The beam of light flickered again, moving closer, agonizingly slow, bathing the area in its harsh glow. Emma felt the heat radiating off it like a tormented sun. They're getting closer, she breathed out, dread clawing at her gut. Jake cast a glance outside the shelter. We need to see what we're up against, he replied, determination hardening his face. Without waiting for argument, he inched forward, pushing back some of the thick foliage. Emma held her breath as Jake peered out. She wished she hadn't looked too. When she caught a glimpse through the tangled branches, her blood went colder than winter's breath. The light illuminated not just the trees but a figure moving through the shadows. It was tall, almost skeletal, cloaked in a shimmering suit that seemed to ripple as if the air itself was bending around it. Did you see that? Jake whispered, his voice echoing her fear. What the hell is that? Emma shook her head, her throat tight. We have to move. Now. But the figure suddenly paused, its head tilting as if it were listening. Emma's breath caught what if it could hear them. The air crackled, and she felt a static charge prickling her skin. Jake, it's looking this way, she muttered, eyes wide with terror. He yanked her back into the hollow just as a flash of light radiated outwards from the figure, sending ripples through the air. "Just stay quiet," Jake implored, his fingers trembling on her arm. The shadows of the night had become thick with danger, and every second felt like an eternity. Emma bit her lip, trying to drown out the urgency clamoring inside her. But then she heard something, a soft humming, rising and falling like a sinister lullaby, wrapping around her heart like a vice. "We're not safe here," she choked out. "What if it finds us?" "I don't know, Emma." "Just breathe," Jake shot back, desperation lacing his voice. The humming grew louder, intertwined with a chorus of voices echoing in the stillness of the night. "Search the perimeter," the deep voice from before commanded, slicing through the air like a knife. "They cannot escape." Emma's pulse raced with the realization that they were being hunted. Not just for their lives, but for something much worse. Then, as she strained to listen, the voices grew frantic. The figure moved closer, passing just inches from their concealing bramble. Emma stilled, horrified, the weight of the moment squeezing her lungs. What did they want? Why were they so determined to find them? And then, it hit her like a bolt of lightning. Not just to capture. They were here for something specific. As the figure paused, Emma felt the pull of fate. It was about to uncover their hiding place. She grasped Jake's arm tighter. "Get ready. We might have to fight," she urged, adrenaline surging through her veins. They couldn't afford to lose. They had to uncover the truth before it was too late. Unbeknownst to them, the chaos of the night was only beginning as something unexpected ignited behind the grotto. What lay ahead would change everything. The light flickered again, scattering it across the brambles and momentarily revealing the silhouette of the skeletal figure. It lowered its head, the shimmering suit reflecting the moonlight like a wave crashing against the shore. Emma swallowed hard, her heart hammering like a drum in her chest. Jake tightened his grip on her wrist, their breaths shallow, mingling with the dread surrounding them. "Who are they?" Emma whispered, barely audible, fear threading through her every word. "I don't know," Jake returned, his voice laced with urgency. "But we can't stay here. We have to move while we still can." Just then, a sharp crack echoed from behind them. Emma jumped, her pulse racing even faster. The figure turned abruptly, its attention diverted, allowing Emma to exhale a fragile breath. The distraction, it was Tias, Jake noted, nodding toward the darkness behind them. Without thinking, Emma turned her head. She saw a distortion in the night, a swirling shadow that seemed to go against the very nature of the woods around them. It wavered and pulsed, almost alive. The humming sound intensified, vibrating through her bones. "Look!" she managed to hiss. As she pointed, the shadow coalesced into something more tangible, a figure unlike the first. This one was smaller, hunched over and darting between trees. For a moment, Emma thought it might be another creature, but her heart sank when she recognized the worn jacket and disheveled hair. It was Alex, their friend, lost like they were. "Alex!" she shouted, pushing aside the thorns as they scrambled toward the sound. "Emma?" "Jake!" he cried, his voice laced with relief, mingled with fear. "You have to run! They're everywhere!" "Who?" Jake barked, panic etching itself into his features. But Alex only shook his head, wild-eyed, looking over his shoulder as if the shadows would swallow him whole. "The Watchers. They're drawn to something you have." Emma's mind raced. Something they had? Was it the flash drive? It contained files that could uncover secrets about the people who would do anything to keep them quiet. Ghosted whispers of conspiracy threaded around the three of them. "What do you mean? What do they want?" Emma pressed. "They think you have it. We need to get out of here. It's not safe." Then the ground trembled again, sending waves of unease spiraling through Emma. A chilling breeze swept past, intertwining in the dark, as the skeletal figure finally turned back to them, its gaze locking onto Alex as if an unseen tether had rendered them connected. The air thickened with horror, and Emma's heart clenched. "Run!" she shouted. Helpless, they sprinted away from the figure and the sprawling darkness. Branches whipped at their arms and legs, but adrenaline powered their feet, pushing them deeper into the thicket. The buzzing chorus of voices grew louder. "Use the light!" A voice beyond barked, and Emma recognized it as the commanding tone from earlier. "What light?" she cried back, stumbling. "It's right in front of you. The path. They won't follow you if you're in the light." They darted left, and suddenly a bright shaft of illumination burst through the trees. For a moment, silence engulfed them as the thrumming energy vanished. "Is this the light?" Jake gasped, barely catching his breath, glancing at Alex, who looked equally baffled. "I think so," Alex replied, squinting at the beam. "But we can't stay here. They'll be back." "What do we do?" Emma's voice shook out as if in answer. The trembling ground shifted again, opening a fissure beside them. The brightness dimmed, and she caught a glimpse of something terrible beneath a swirling void that seemed to pull at their very souls. "Oh God, what is that?" Emma screamed, the blood draining from her face. "That's the choice," Alex yelled, pointing at the moving shadows that approached quicker than they could comprehend. "Jump! Or stay and get caught." But a flicker of doubt clouded Emma's judgment. What if it led to their end? What lay in that darkness? And before they could choose, the shadows surged forward, tendrils of fear that snatched at their heels, pushing them towards the brink. As they tilted toward the void, Emma's last thought crystallized. Was this the price of their discovery? Something twisted inside her gut as they plunged into the darkness, a scream escaping her lips, the light extinguishing behind them. Next time, they would need to confront not just the hunters, but what they themselves had become. The darkness enveloped them instantly, choking out any remnants of light or hope. Emma's heart pounded as she twisted through the void, disoriented and gasping. The sensation was almost like being submerged underwater, stripped of sound and vision. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, sinking with the oppressive weight of the unknown. "Emma?" Jake's voice snapped through the murk, pulling her from the icy grip of her thoughts. "Are you okay?" She gulped, desperately trying to steady herself against whatever force was pulling them down. It felt like floating in dark syrup, heavy and viscous, swallowing her whole. "I can't tell. What's happening?" "Just keep your eyes open," Alex called. But as the shift of the world continued, it became impossible to hold on to anything. The darkness felt alive, pulsating around them, filling the gaps between thoughts with dread. Out of nowhere, a shimmer flickered into view, an iridescent light piercing through the blackness like a beacon. Its glow was faint, but it triggered instincts deep within Emma. They had to reach it. She extended her arm forward, hoping to break through the curtain of shadows between them and salvation. "Follow the light," Jake shouted, urgency clawing at his tone. Emma felt his hand grasp hers, a lifeline amidst the chaos. And then, like a clap of thunder, everything erupted. Brilliant colors exploded around them, blues, greens, and purples swirling like a cosmic storm. Emma blinked against the brilliance, momentarily blinded as they tumbled into a strange space, not quite solid, yet not entirely ethereal. They landed on a surface that felt like mist, just thick enough to hold their weight. "What the hell?" Alex's voice faltered, his eyes darting around the kaleidoscopic chaos. "Where are we?" Disoriented, Emma took a shaky step forward, careful not to lose grip on Jake. The colors shimmered like oil on water, and strange symbols flickered across the ground, glowing softly like runes from an ancient tome. It was beautiful and terrifying at once. "Those are markings?" she stuttered, pointing at the ethereal light that danced beneath their feet. "Save it for later." "Look!" Jake shouted. His voice quivered with both fear and awe. Then they saw them, figures shifting in the distance. They were the Watchers, at least a dozen of them, cloaked and skeletal against the drone of color. Their hollow eyes glinted, and Emma felt their gaze pierce through her, stoking the fear deep inside. "They've found us!" Alex hissed, eyes wide with terror. "We need to go. Now!" But before they could move, a sweeping voice echoed around them, drowning out their frantic thoughts. "You are not meant to be here. You do not belong." It drummed through the air like a funeral bell, resonating within their bones. The figures shifted closer, gliding with an uncanny grace toward the swirling light. "What do they want?" Emma blurted, panic bubbling in her chest. "They want the knowledge!" Jake yelled, pulling Emma closer. "We have to protect the flash drive. We can't let them take it." The skeletal figures raised bony fingers, their movements deliberate, almost calculating as they drew nearer. Emma felt their urgency share space with mounting dread, coiling tightly in her stomach. "No!" she cried out, her voice breaking. "We can't let them touch it!" As if responding to her words, the symbols on the ground blazed brighter, casting an enormous glow that seemed to infuriate the watchers. They recoiled, howling in a sound that reverberated like 1,000 trapped souls. "Do something!" Alex shouted. Then the ground beneath them pulsed again, offering a new opening in the swirling chaos beneath. The darkness beckoned with a deep growl, an escape but also a danger, an abyss that might lead them to safety, or send them spiraling into the unknown. "Jump!" Jake yelled, his voice tragically defined by urgency. As the watchers lunged forward, their claws extended, Emma locked eyes with her friends, heart racing, knowing this split-second decision could change everything. "What's down there?" she wondered aloud, her breath hitching in her throat. But as the shadows lunged again, they had no choice. They dove, tumbling through the opening, the reality of their choice crashing down around them. And in the next instant, they were lost again, a free fall into an abyss that promised not just darkness, but the truth that waited at the bottom. What if the truths they sought were more horrifying than the hunters themselves? They hit the ground with a soft thud, the mist cushioned their fall, but the sensation felt like landing on a cloud of dread. Emma gasped for breath, her heart still racing from the leap. She blinked, gradually gathering her surroundings. They were no longer enveloped in that kaleidoscopic chaos. Instead, they stood in what looked like a cavernous space, illuminated by a shimmering glow that pulsed from the walls. The light flickered like a heartbeat, casting unsettling shadows that danced menacingly around them. "Where are we?" Alex whispered, his face pale and eyes scanning for threats. "I don't know, but it feels different," Emma replied, trepidation coiling around her spine. The air was thick and charged, almost electric. Jake tightened his grip on Emma's hand. "We have to keep moving. Those things, whatever they are, might follow us." "Right." Emma nodded, her voice steadying. They cautiously stepped forward, memories of the skeletal figures haunting her thoughts. Echoes of their howls lingered like an unwanted guest, refusing to leave. The chamber felt larger than they could comprehend, and strange markings adorned the walls, symbols eerily familiar yet nothing they could decipher. As they trudged deeper, they began to hear a soft hum reverberating through the space, like a song sung in a forgotten language. "Do you hear that?" Jake asked, tilting his head. "Like chanting?" Alex pondered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "I don't know," Emma stammered, the sound prickling her skin. It felt both inviting and terrifying, luring them further into the unknown. But it was the ground that shifted beneath them that truly set off alarm bells. The comforting mist turned hard and stony, a warning that made them pause. "Oh," Alex mumbled, looking down, "I think something is happening." Before they could react, the already overhead symbols began to glow brighter, and the chanting intensified, morphing into a cacophony that rattled in their bones. The very foundation of where they stood trembled. "Get back!" Jake shouted, pulling Emma close. An iridescent mist started swirling from the walls towards them, forming tendrils that reached out with what appeared to be intent. Emma's heart raced again, the light around them shifted, screaming for attention. "Run!" Alex yelled, but as they turned to flee, the ground split open before them, a chasm formed, revealing blackness that rivaled the void they had escaped earlier. "Where to?" Emma shrieked, the edge looming dangerously close. "We can't stay here!" Jake yelled. Closure was impossible as the light desperately tried to push them back together, a collision of forces. "Look!" Emma pointed skyward. The ceiling of the cavern began to tremble, shimmering like a thick sheet of water. Shapes started to emerge from the mist, familiar but monstrous versions of the figures they'd seen in the previous realm, each one somehow larger and more menacing. We have to go, now. Alex's breath caught in his throat, panic-laced urgency guiding his words as they descended into chaos. Yet, Emma hesitated, feeling a strange pull toward the glowing symbols on the wall. It was like a voice whispering just beyond the edge of comprehension. The symbols seemed to highlight the fear tattooed on her soul, each one promising enlightenment or doom. Emma, come on! Jake shouted again, but adrenaline buzzed through her veins, urging her to defy them, to embrace the symbols that flickered with a promise or a curse. With trembling hands, she reached out, the chill of the luminescent symbols thrumming through her fingertips. But the Watchers were upon them, monstrous and fluid, their hollow eyes locked onto her, seeking what she had hidden, the truth that could very well shatter everything. What would happen if she unleashed the knowledge while the dark figures closed in? Suddenly, the room erupted into chaos, and Emma was left dangling between the pull of the symbols and the grasp of the Watchers. The moment loomed heavy with possibilities, each fraction of a second pulsing with gravity. What truths were hidden in that connection? Would it save them or seal their fate? Emma's hand hovered over the glowing symbols, a pulsing warmth emanating from the wall that wrapped around her like a lover's embrace. She felt that strange call, like whispers weaving through her mind, knowledge begging to be uncovered. Just beyond her reach lay the truth, but also the chaos that danced around them. Emma, don't! Jake's voice sliced through her thoughts, sharp and urgent. He tugged at her arm, desperation mixed with fear evident in his wide eyes. But the Watchers, those horrifying, elongated shadows, closed in silently like a dark tide. The air crackled louder now, a thunderstorm brewing in the cavern. As Emma's fingertips brushed the surface of the symbols, a shock coursed through her, jolting her deeper into the moment. The chanting soared, transforming into a maddening chorus that clawed at the edges of her sanity. Let go! Alex shouted. A strange rhythm surged through her, the symbols thrumming like a heartbeat in sync with her own. She felt alive. She felt empowered. Yet, the Watchers, there was something undeniably sinister about them. Squirming figures, twisting with an unholy grace, extended shadowy hands toward her. Their hollow eyes weren't just empty, they were hungry. Emma fought the urge to pull back. Just one slip, and they'd deconsume her. No! Jake yelled again, propelling Emma back from the luminous wall, but with a fierce tug, she slipped further away from him. Stay away from that! His voice was now panicked. The molten light from the symbols flared briefly, it almost projected images, fractured memories, fragments of a world she didn't own. Faces flickered before her, distorted and anguish-ridden, caught in an eternal scream. Suddenly, like a paper-thin veil shattering, clarity crashed over Emma. She gasped loudly, feeling the weight of revelation. These Watchers were once people. Chained spirits trapped within their own torment, seeking someone who could release them. Wait, I can help them! She shouted back, conviction swallowing fear. Help them? Alex's incredulity echoed around the cavern. Emma, they're trying to take you. No! She could almost see past the darkness into their pained souls, but doubts whispered in her ear. What if helping them meant giving up everything she knew? The ground quaked violently beneath them, sending surges of ice through the air. One of the monstrous figures stepped closer, looming like a storm cloud, its face morphing in and out of horrifying shapes. Emma? Jake's voice broke through once more. He stepped forward, eyes wide and pleading. Trust me. We need to leave. Whatever this place is, whatever you think you can do, it's a trap. Or a chance to break a cycle. Emma countered, heart racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that what lay before her was destiny. Let us go. Alex's voice wavered, desperation rising again, but the Watchers' low growls echoed a warning. Suddenly, the chanting resumed, louder, more desperate, crescendoing into a fierce vibrato that rattled bones and shook sanity. With it, the cavern walls began to pulsate violently like a heart attacking, as if reacting to the truth about to be revealed. Emma? Jake's shout turned frantic. The startled whispers grew into wild screams. Do something! The swirling mist churned around them, tangling into a vortex, pulling at every layer of their existence. Emma felt the weight of choice. Would she free the lost souls or abandon her own friends to the wrath of this unfathomable darkness? In that moment, she knew she was about to tip the balance, swinging between salvation or despair. The watchers reached out, longing and yet terrifying, truth mingling with fear in every heartbeat that echoed around them. But as she readied to unlock the symbols, a new horror gripped the chamber, a thundering roar, shaking the ground, as a chasm yawned wider. Choose, Emma! The force of the moment seized her like iron chains, threatening to pull her apart. What would she decide, and what price would they pay? The shadows loomed closer, the truth closer still. Emma swallowed hard, the weight of the world crushing down, as she stood on the razor's edge between fate and freedom. What lay ahead if she opened her heart and mind to the ancient power before her? The world around Emma teetered on the brink, colors bleeding into one another, emotions weaving a tapestry of chaos. The chasm before her yawned wider as if it were a hungry beast, threatening to swallow them whole. She felt Jake's grip on her arm tighten as panic painted his face. The echoes of despair reverberated around them, a haunting symphony playing in the chaos like a siren-esque call. Please, Emma! Jake pleaded, his voice laced with an edge of desperation. We have to go now. But fear rippled through Emma's veins. She couldn't shake the sense that this moment was everything, an intersection of choices that could alter fates. She looked at the seekers, those lost souls, their faces warped in agony and longing. Could she really turn her back on them? Emma? Alex shouted, his urgency sharp enough to cut through the electric air. What do you feel? Think about it. This place isn't just bad, it's lethal. If you reach out. His voice faded into a low tremor at the implication, the weight of uncertainty causing dread to swell in his eyes. That a whisper bloomed in her mind, a seductive promise of knowledge. The glowing symbols throbbed like a heartbeat, and with every pulse she felt the ancient energy wrap around her, awakening something dormant within. If she unlocked their truth, would she become a savior or would she be consumed? The shadows surged forward, swirling in a grotesque dance, and Emma's resolve wavered. She glanced back at her friends, their eyes wide with fear, yet there was something more, a flicker of hope mingled with the need to escape. The drumming of the watchers intensified, urging her on, but a sense of foreboding cloaked her heart. Their hollow eyes bore into her, imploring with a desperation she couldn't fully understand. But amid the cacophony, her own heart raced a real and constant rhythm that couldn't be ignored. Choose! The voice roared from the darkness, the weight of the chasm pressing against her chest. A new wave of shadows surged forward, grotesque forms morphing even closer. Emma stood at the cliff of her choice, heart in her throat, threatening to choke her. Emma, please! Jake strained, shaking her slightly, his breath hitching with urgency, but she couldn't pull away. Something magnetic, transcendent, bound her to the symbols. When she focused, she could see clearer visions penetrating the torment, sharing fleeting glimpses of who they once were, victims of fate momentarily grappling for salvation. This could change everything, she whispered breathlessly, her resolve wavering. Or it could destroy you, Alex countered. The watchful air became thick, the shadows inclining ever more towards her, almost eager, ready to pounce on her indecision like vultures on prey. As the watcher's sorrow morphed into frustration, the walls pulsated again in a deafening rhythm. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, forcing herself to envision their release, a wave of light, a bridge to freedom, a belonging that she never knew she could wield. If I can save them, then I have to try. The words slipped from her lips as if spoken by someone else. But before she could react, the ground trembled violently, shaking the very foundation of their reality. The roar rose like an inferno, drowning out her thoughts, until the floor shimmered and buckled beneath her feet. Chasms opened wide, revealing depths of darkness hungry, threatening. Emma? Jake screamed, panic breaking his usually calm demeanor. His expression shifted to terror as the shadows around them erupted into a frenzy, racing toward her with desperate speed. The symbols pulsed, brightening, illuminating the fear-stricken faces of her friends, and in that moment she understood, the truth demanded a sacrifice. Just as she bent forward, ready to breach the light, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating the depths. The watchers let out a haunting wail that echoed through the very marrow of her bones. Was that agony or relief? But as quickly as it had come, the light flickered, leaving Emma suspended between choice and consequence, the darkness clawing at the periphery of her consciousness. Suddenly, an ear-splitting crack split the air, sending debris raining down, and the cavern began to collapse. What lay beyond this chaos? Truth, salvation, or something far worse? Emma's heart raced, uncertainty thrumming louder than ever. The weight of the moment bore down as she stood, poised on the edge of destiny, a storm brewing around her. Could she truly break the chains, or would she fall into the abyss along with the watchers? In that heart-stopping moment, the ground shook violently as the cavern walls convulsed. The air exploded with tension, and echoes of despair filled her ears. Emma's heart drummed in sync with the chaos around her, each thud screaming for her to make a choice. Emma? Jake's voice sliced through the panic, urgent and frayed. She was torn apart by the weight of his worry, and yet, deep down, a spark ignited an overwhelming sense of purpose. The shimmering symbols pulsed beneath her fingers, thrumming with energy, flickering with potential. But as the shadows pressed closer, a chilling realization lurked in the back of her mind. What if both salvation and destruction were intertwined? I can save them! She yelled over the cacophony, more for herself than for anyone else. In that moment, it felt less like a decision and more like an inevitability. She drew a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the symbols bleed into her, a current of light feeding her resolve. The watchers closed in, their hollow eyes pleading, a reflection of despair she couldn't turn away from. Emma felt the weight of their sorrow pressing against her soul. Her fingers tingled, and as she reached back out toward the pulsing symbols, a fierce determination settled in her chest. Together! Emma shouted, and without hesitating, she took a step forward. The moment she touched the symbols, they erupted into a blinding radiance, enveloping her and her friends in a tapestry of light that chased away the encroaching shadows. No! The watchers screamed, their voices rising into a shrill chorus, and in that moment Emma glimpsed their true nature. They weren't just lost souls bound by curse, they were echoes of themselves, reflections trapped between realms. Each one represented a choice unmade, a path never taken. The beams of light blazed brighter, igniting raw energy that surged forth, twisting and spiraling like a storm unleashed. The cavern erupted in a symphony of colors, glorious and frightening. Then, time hung suspended. Emma? Jake cried, grasping her hand desperately, pulling her back, but she was already stepping toward the illumination, willing to brave whatever came next. The energy coursed through her, awakening memories buried deep within her mind. Visions of the past filled her thoughts, laughter, love, a world full of possibilities. With every heartbeat, she could see the haunting faces of the watchers grow clearer, their pain coursing into her own. You want to be free, Emma stated, her voice unwavering. You want to find peace. I can help you. The light swirled like a cyclone, and the watchers hesitated in opening, a flicker of hope. In that moment, Emma knew this was their chance. She could break the barrier that chained them, but shadows surged forward, shrieking in agony. Time was running out. With one last surge of courage, she focused on the symbols, allowing the wave of energy to beam outward, making connections pulse and weave like electric strings, forging a deep bond. What if this doesn't work? Alex whispered in between breaths, fear stretching his features. Emma turned. I can't turn back now, she said, and with that she closed her eyes and let her heart guide her. In one sweeping motion, she unleashed the truth and knowledge of and for them all. The light exploded, cascading out like fireworks, and the very fabric of the cavern shifted. The watchers wailed as their darkness peeled away, layer by layer. They began to shimmer, reflecting glimpses of their former selves, forgotten memories sparking to life. Then, as if caught in a timeless embrace, a wave of light surged forward, enveloping the chamber in blinding brilliance. Emma gasped, the warmth washing over her, and for the briefest of moments, everything felt right. Then silence. When the light receded, Emma found herself standing in a vast open field, sun shining bright. The sky above was a vibrant blue, the air fresh and clean. She blinked, disoriented yet somehow at peace. Jake and Alex stood beside her, equally bewildered. Where Alex began, but it evaporated into a sense of relief, they turned. Watching the eerie silhouettes of shadows fade into the horizon, dissipating into specks of light. No more screams, no more terror, just freedom. What did we just do? Jake asked, eyes wide, filled with disbelief. Emma shrugged, but couldn't hide the smile breaking across her face. We chose hope. We chose life. They shared a moment of solemn understanding, binding them firmly in purpose. As they walked forward, the sun warmed their skin, and Emma felt a weight lift from her heart. She had faced darkness and emerged light, carrying a truth that not even the shadows could take from her. In the distance, laughter rang out, children playing in the grass, people enjoying life normal, simple, a reminder of everything that mattered. Emma's heart swelled with joy. Let us never forget this moment, she murmured as they continued onward, hand in hand. Because this was just the beginning, the truth remained, alive in the choices they made, echoing through every step they took together. You need to subscribe now and be part of our journey as we uncover every secret next time. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and spread the love for our stories. Flood the comments with your reactions, thoughts, and theories about the ending. Let us connect. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this wild conclusion. Your support means everything.